Happy Friday evening, everybody. It is January 19th, and big news for the Buckeyes. Ohio State reportedly has landed the commitment of transfer defensive back Caleb Downs, formerly of Alabama, to Ohio State. Tom and Tony will both be joining me here shortly. And speak of the devil, and I do mean the devil, there is Tom Orr, our good friend right there. Not really where I thought we were going to be going this evening, certainly.
Yeah, I don't know, 20 minutes or so ago was just leaving a lovely dinner with my wife, left the kids at home. I was like, oh, we'll have a nice night out. Saturday, Friday. It's not Saturday, it's Friday. Sorry, kids were home from school today, so it really threw me off. But yeah, just nice, quiet, easy night. Nothing going to happen. And then all of a sudden I get about 7 texts in a row from our group thread, our Buckeye Huddle group thread. And I thought, I wonder what that might be.
Yeah, I legitimately had just walked in the door and got about 3 or 4 texts. And in today's modern day of Twitter, I had to check and make sure it wasn't fake Pete Thamel, faux Pete Thamel. But when I sat there and saw 280,000 followers or whatever, I'm like, this is real. This is real. And Ohio State won that people were not expecting. Safety, Caleb Downs outside of Atlanta, passes up on UGA and picks the Buckeyes. Really, maybe one of the 2 missing pieces left for this 2024 team with the departure of Josh Proctor. It really plugs a big piece in. Now, if Ohio State were able to really go nuts and land Caden Proctor, I mean, we might be on the air for 12 hours. I don't know, but just your thoughts on this news. Everybody in the chat obviously right now knows what's going on. We don't even need to bring any comments up at the moment. We will get into all of that here on this emergency edition of, I don't even know which show we're branding this as. This is just it is Friday night. Here we are. Let's talk about the news.
Yeah, and the news is pretty significant. We just did a show, speaking of not being able to figure out what show we were doing. We've done a bunch of shows. It must have been a Buckeye Weekly in the last day or two. And there was one of the questions was, what would be a bigger get for Ohio State? Is it, Caden Proctor or Caleb Downs? Which one would be a bigger addition? And I think Tony thought pretty clearly Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor. Yes, sorry.
The lineman.
Yeah, the lineman, the offensive lineman from Iowa, who's probably going to end up at Iowa. Caleb Downs, to me, it's a conversation. It is a legitimate conversation. Which one would have been bigger? Because you can, scoring a touchdown is great. Not giving up a touchdown nets you out the same amount of points. And that was really, there were very few real holes on the 2024 Ohio State defense. And I didn't know that safety, that deep safety spot was even really a hole truly, because they've got Malik Hartford there, who was, as a true freshman, already very impressive. So it wasn't like you were pulling, there was nothing there. There was a very talented player there. This is just an upgrade there. This is an upgrade, and it gives you more depth, which, we can talk about the whole 16-team, 12-team playoff. That's going to raise. You need all that depth. This is a huge, huge pickup.
I mean, it really is, because it's not just, they're getting an experienced player. They're getting a top flight. Caleb Downs could be an All-American for the next 2 years at Ohio State. He's played 1 year. He's got 2 more years before he can go, unless the NC2A and the NFL come to some sort of agreement of differently of how to handle it. Yeah, I know there's a lot of noise going on here at my house. I will try to move upstairs. My wife has already told me to shut the hell up, that she was trying to watch her stories. So bear with me as I walk upstairs. I'm gonna dump out so you don't have to watch me walk through my house, and let Tom talk for a minute, and I will join you as soon as I land.
Yes. So first of all, Mike Ferguson says, "I don't know what to do with my hands." That is a great reference. Appreciate it. And that is, I think, the level of excitement we're talking about here for Ohio State fans. This is one where not only is it a big addition, and not only is it a very important addition at a very important position, it's also just continues the role of good news, especially the role of good news they've gotten on the defensive side of the ball, where it's just you could have lost your whole 2021 defensive line recruiting class, both of your linebackers. You could have lost a couple of your corners. You could have lost Lathan Ransom as a safety. You got virtually everyone back other than your two linebackers who were going to go pro because they were out of eligibility. Mike Hall, and that's it. And Josh Proctor, who was out of eligibility. And now you've supplanted them or supplemented them with Caleb Downs, who was basically an All-American last year. And if you want to, if you're trying to think like, what did Caleb Downs do? What would I remember him from? Remember literally the first play on offense from the Rose Bowl where JJ McCarthy got picked off and the safety had his toe 2 inches out of bounds and the penalty wiped it out. That was Caleb Downs. I mean, this close to that kind of an impact play on the first play of a college football playoff game. I mean, that was as a true freshman. This is a huge, huge, huge addition. Tony Gerdeman has joined us. Tony, I think I speak for all of us when I say, what took so long?
With me or Downs?
We'll start with
you. Caleb Downs led the SEC in solo tackles with 70 this year. It's just to give you an idea of who this guy is. And I'm sorry, I missed the first 5 minutes, and I'm sure you covered this, Tom. But this is a guy that we talked about. This was the fantasy missing piece of the Ohio State defense in terms of you're replacing Josh Proctor, and obviously expectations are very high from Malik Hartford. But this isn't just a huge pickup for 2024. This dude is a true freshman. This is a huge pickup for 2025 as well, when they are going to be losing a ton of people after next season. So this is pretty it's one of those things where it's so stunning. Like, you think obviously Ohio State has a chance, but what it would mean is so high level that you don't even really like entertain it, because it's like it's almost a waste of energy, because it's like we'll deal with it when it happens. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. And we are out on the middle of this bridge right now, and it's huge for Ohio State.
Well, I mean, the last time Ohio State fans were in the middle of the bridge was about 3 weeks ago, and I think they were thinking about jumping. I don't think anyone's ready to jump anymore. Let's hop ahead on our super chats to Austin Christmas, who says, with this many wins, Day should play the lottery. I mean, Ryan Day Ohio State is technically on a 2-game losing streak, but boy, Ohio State sure feels like it's on quite a win streak in the month of January, just getting back all of the guys they got back. And you bring in a center through the portal, and you bring in a quarterback to the portal, and you bring in a running back to the portal, and you bring in a tight end through the portal, and now you're bringing through a safety in the portal. And these are, for the most part, this is 2 guys you've taken from Alabama. You got another guy from Ole Miss. You got another guy from Kansas State. This is not, you're not, no disrespect to some of the guys they brought in last year. This is not like, well, we got a guy from ULM, and can he play? I don't know. We'll all find out together. These are guys who played literally for Nick Saban last year, multiple guys now, and guys who were among the best players in the conference, in the nation, as in this case, is in Caleb Downs' case as a true freshman. Oh boy, the ceiling just kind of keeps. We've talked about the floor rising in some cases in terms of Ohio State, some of the guys they brought in on offense. The ceiling for the Ohio State defense next year, it is as high as I can ever remember it being.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I think the trajectory of this defense, as Tom mentioned earlier, as I was moving upstairs out of the noise, as I got a text message from Tom's like, it's really loud where you are. I'm like, yeah, I'm at home. That's why it's really loud. Just replacing a couple of linebackers that you already knew was going to happen. I mean, you lose Mike Hall, you lose a little bit here, you lose a little bit there, but this was already a really good defense. I think structurally the biggest issue was they got a little conservative. Now you have Caleb Downs out there, leads the SEC in solo tackles, just a tremendous playmaker. As I said again before Tony got on the call, probably going to be All-American for the next 2 years. I mean, this is part of BIA. We talk so much about BIA being kind of a corner thing, but damn, Caleb Downs is really going to mean a lot here. If you're on the offensive side of the ball, it's like, well, we know we got defense locked down. Now if they can just get themselves, let's see, one more offensive lineman, maybe an assistant defensive line coach to add to the mix, and maybe while they're at it, maybe another 2024 quarterback. I mean, all of these things are very much in play right now. It is crazy. We did a show just recently, and we do a lot of shows, so they kind of run together after a while, of how much has stuff changed since December 29th on the field. Jerry World, just an absolute kick in the junk in that Cotton Bowl. And okay, well, that game doesn't matter. Well, everybody was ready to find a new team. Everybody was ready to move on and just scatter in the wind. And now here we are on January 19th, and I'm not supposed to get excited about things, but let's get to spring ball already. Let's get to spring ball.
Spring ball will be here soon enough, Kevin. Mere weeks away, first week in March generally. The analogy to in terms of the Ohio State defense, the Death Star being fully operational, and then you wonder, well, what is the exhaust port? Is it the offensive line? And that's what people are worried about now. My DMs and my text messages are going crazy, and it's like, this is great, but what about the offensive line? It's like, did you forget about the part where you just said this is great? Like, can you just spend some time on that?
That's no bigger than a womp rat. Sorry,
And-
that's a Star Wars reference. That's a Star Wars reference, Tom.
Yeah. Do you understand that, Tom? Don't you do the live long and prosper right now. We will. You're the worst.
All right, we got a couple super chats we got to get through. Omar Austin says, what is his position and whose place does he take? So this is Caleb Downs. I would certainly project him to be in that adjuster position at the Ohio State defense, that sort of deep safety, field safety. Everyone has a little bit of a different nomenclature for it. That's where Josh Proctor played last year. Josh Proctor used up his 6 years of college. Lots of people go to college for 6 years. Yes, they're called doctors. Or Josh Proctor. He is now gone. So now you have an open spot there. And it was Josh Proctor's spot last year. It was sort of projected to be Malik Hartford's spot this coming year. Malik Hartford, just like Caleb Downs, was a true freshman last year, got thrown in, was not quite ready, which guess what? That's what a true freshman looks like at the safety position. Malik Hartford, I think, has a very bright future at Ohio State. Caleb Downs, as a true freshman last year, was ready for it. And that's what makes this such a huge deal, because normally I think you would look at a true freshman like Malik Hartford playing the role he did last year, and you'd kind of go, they're going to be fine there. If he was ready to do that as a true freshman, he's going to be fine as a sophomore and junior. Now you got Caleb Downs, who was better than fine last year as a true freshman. So what the heck is that going to look like as a sophomore and a junior? And you've still got Malik Hartford, and we can talk about the importance of depth this year with having to play many more games, but that's where he would slide in on the defense. We'll get to the other two real quick. Omar says, go upstairs and talk. Don't piss off Mama Noon, Kevin. Chicago Med is on.
She's watching Southern Charm, which is maybe the worst show on TV, at least since Dance Moms, and she watches all of that crap. It's horrible.
Tony, do you have any thoughts on Southern Charm, or can we move on to this one from Stephen Oglesby?
Well, we'll do a separate show. Go ahead and let's move on.
Stephen Oglesby says, and I quote, boom. The 4 exclamation points or 3 exclamation points? 3 exclamation points. I think that feels sufficient for the level of boom that we're talking about here. I mean, that's maybe a couple extra O's in the middle, but this is sometimes it's a boom and it's like, okay, that was good. This is one where it deserves the what is it, the Iron Man one or whatever, where he's like, you've got the blast thing going out from it. You've seen the GIF. You as an Ohio State fan have seen every boom GIF that's out there. Feels like that one, or one of the ones with like the kid getting hit with something, and that boom GIF. There's it was like one of those swinging things or something at there's one at a trampoline place
swing?
Or something, and it's like, maybe it was a swing. Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of a different
There's also
one
of one of those big slingshot, like single person slingshots where the shot just comes back and hits the guy. I mean, just follow at Mark Pantoni. I'm assuming that's his Twitter account. You'll see them all right there.
We do need to talk about the spot, talking about Styles moves to linebacker now. I will say, in just looking at Alabama's depth chart from their game notes for the Michigan game, they do list Caleb Downs as a strong safety, but he does play the wide side of the field. He does play the field safety, which is what Ohio State refers to their free safety as. So, and even if he didn't, this is a match that Lathan Ransom, Caleb Downs, Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, Davis Nigbinosin. That is lockdown territory. And then now it's time for Sonny Styles to move to linebacker. So the two big starting losses on the Ohio State defense outside of Josh Proctor are Cody Simon or Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers. So you may be replacing them with Cody Simon, who has over a dozen starts in his career, has been a starting middle linebacker at Ohio State, and then maybe Sonny Styles, who has almost a dozen starts in his career at Ohio State as a linebacker. I think that's a pretty interesting thing. And even if it's not Sonny Styles, he's competing with CJ Hicks, who is a 5-star, who competing with Gabe Powers. So, boy, if that's the weak spot of the defense, I think people would be okay with that.
No, I agree. I think that the defense surely is. I mean, it's not going to struggle due to lack of quality personnel. I mean, sometimes you have to make sure it all comes together, but we saw evidence of that last season, and now you plug in certain pieces, and it's going to be there. I mean, that secondary, it's going to be really difficult to throw against them. Ohio State still needs to probably manage a little bit more of a pass rush. It's big that you have JT Tuimoloau back, that you have Jack Sawyer back. You've got guys like Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. You've got other guys who are in the pipeline and are going to see more opportunity. And I think that this is going to be a case of where you feel good enough about your secondary, you're going to feel better about what you can get away with in your front seven. So, or I guess front six, if you will. But Ohio State is going to be in a good position as it is. And I know we have a super chat to get to, as it's breaking in a new to them quarterback, as it's breaking in life after Marv, as it's trying to figure out what the offensive line is. We talked about going into last season. If the offense is 15% worse and the defense is 15% better, I mean, they're going to be in a lot better position. Well, how much better is the defense now, just based on the vast majority of the defense being back again, being that much more experienced, the pieces that you're bringing in, and maybe a little bit more proof of concept in the Jim Knowles system.
All right, let's hit the super chat from Ravia Tutube. How are they able to land all these guys now? What changed? Is it purely NIL, or did something happen fundamentally that we're now turning into a Death Star that used to be under Urban Meyer? I mean, I think NIL is a part of this conversation, but I think a part of it is also you have now seen the proof of concept of the Jim Knowles defense, Tony, that there was a lot of, well, this guy came in, we'll see, and it wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be in 2022. Then they were one of the best defenses in the country last year. And then you had all these guys coming back for 2024, and it's like, okay, this is very clearly, this was probably a national championship caliber defense in 2023. It's almost certainly going to be a national championship caliber defense in 2024.
Yeah, and if the two options for him came down to Ohio State and Georgia, remember, Ohio State was his number 2 choice. He wanted it was a tough no to say to Ohio State and Ryan Day. And then when you look at the opportunity, I'm sure the offers are pretty commensurate in terms of NIL, but Georgia has an All-American free safety already in Malachi Starks. And so I'm sure Caleb Downs and Malachi Starks would have been fantastic together. But this is a situation where Ohio State was a very acceptable place to him before he had actually chosen Alabama. And now this is an opportunity where everybody has left Alabama. And so now you're like, well, is it Ohio State? Is it Georgia? And I'm sure the offers came in very quickly, and so did the decision. And we said what I know we were on earlier in the day, but I think we said on another show a day or two ago, like the last day to add a class without petition was today at Ohio State. So there'll be some petitioning involved, or maybe it's already been going on. But this has moved pretty quickly, and it's not purely NIL. The NIL situation has been unleashed. I think we can all agree with that in terms of bringing back the returning juniors. I had somebody text me and said, how much do you think Ohio State or the collectives, the collectives spent on bringing the juniors back? And you do some back of the math. I don't know. I can find my text message, but it's millions. And to then bring in going to the portal where they've done very well, I'm guessing, and I'm not going to guess. I'm going to say, again, 7 figures out of the portal as well. And based on the way things have gone, I'm not going to say they're done.
No. I want to jump in really quick because Tony was talking about Malachi Starks. Let's not forget Georgia also got KJ Bolden out of Buford.
Mm-hmm.
So another safety on the back end of that. But let's not lose sight of Tim Walton and his recruiting. And I understand that Tim Walton is the corners coach, right? Yes, as we're going through this. And there was an existing relationship. He and Caleb's father grew up together, played ball, something like that. So all the credit in the world to Tim Walton and just his sticking with this. I mean, this is because when it comes to portal recruiting, okay, I don't land you at the first onset of the recruitment, but I'm going to stay in there. I'm going to keep that relationship going. And I think that Ohio State has a Laurinaitis type recruiter on the defense when it comes to Tim Walton. And he's going to be that secret weapon as everybody's like, well, Jim Knowles isn't much of a recruiter, and people are concerned about Bill O'Brien. We first mentioned of Bill O'Brien on this show. Bill O'Brien probably isn't that dynamic of a recruiter. Well, when you have Brian Hartline and you have Tim Walton, and however they decide to utilize James Laurinaitis, this is still there's a lot of coffee being served at the Woody right now because coffee is for closers.
You made an interesting point there. We do have a couple more super chats to get to, but you made an interesting point there about maintaining relationships, and just because the recruitment's over doesn't mean you stop maintaining that relationship, because you never know what's going to happen in the portal. Did you see the video of where Kirby Smart went after the SEC championship game? He's just lost the SEC championship game. He's going to miss the college football playoff. What does he do? Who does he go over and say hi to, shake hands with? T-Rob, who was the safeties coach at Alabama, who, lo and behold, is at Georgia now, and Caleb Downs. There's a video of him giving Caleb Downs a big hug and, probably saying congratulations and we'll see you soon. And Georgia was certainly making a push for Caleb Downs. But that is the reality of college football right now, is just because you miss the first time, or, you don't get a guy, you don't burn that bridge. You keep your relationship going, because you never know where things are headed down the line. And Tim Walton, as Kevin said, is, we are at the point where Tim Walton is the Brian Hartline of the defense. Feels like, well, is Brian Hartline the Tim Walton of the offense? Because you might be getting there at some point pretty soon. It is a remarkable run for Tim Walton, and Dorian Brew. And, they just brought in Devin Sanchez, 5-star corner out of Texas for 2025. Dorian Brew, another 5-star or high 4-star corner. He could be potentially in the class as well. They've got a third corner already in the class. There's also a top 100 kind of corner. I mean, it is a remarkable run for Tim Walton. Super chat from Chase Hoffman says, I haven't had this high of expectations for a Buckeye team since 2015. The only concern I think, Tony, is every time people go into it and going, boy, this Ohio State team can't possibly lose. It's always 1998 or 2015 or 2003 or
Purdue or Iowa or Sparty waiting in the wings.
1969. I mean, this is not a new phenomenon, but it is a consistent phenomenon.
Yeah, no, the expectations are rightfully high, but you're exactly right, Tom. Every year they're born to win it, destined to win it. They haven't won it, and it's been, I think, every year. I've said this before. Ohio State has never won like a recognized national championship with a returning starter at quarterback. So it's like when they do have that returning starter at quarterback, and everything looks like, oh man, they're going to be really good. Something happens. And I've talked about this before on the show where I was a senior in 1998, delayed graduation to be able to get season tickets for 1998. Had tickets for all of the road games. We're going to go because we knew Ohio State was the best team in the nation. They were going to win a national championship. There was no doubt to that. And then, Sparty happened. And then, have the high expectations. Just know in the past, the high expectations have, thank you for bringing this up, by the way. Fantastic topic.
Well, we should send a super chat to Sally because I agree right here.
This is a smooth transition from Nick Saban in 1998, Michigan State ruining Tony's red shirt season at Ohio State. Saban retiring is our greatest gift. I mean, they've added a center. They have added a Caleb Downs now. They have, Caden Proctor could potentially be. There's other guys out there in the portal.
Julian Sayed, the quarterback. I mean,
Yep. 2024 quarterback, number one quarterback.
It's the meme of the two hands or whatever. One's going to say Ohio State and one is going to say Texas, and under it's going to say Saban's retirement, because these programs are, Texas has landed more players. I think Ohio State is certainly, the players it's landed have really landed for Ohio State. It's pretty amazing what this retirement of Saban has done for the redistribution of wealth. I'll say that. Not that Ohio State was a poverty case by any stretch of the imagination, but damn.
Well, I tweeted this earlier today, and I'm just finding it because I may need to adjust it. It was in reference to, it's a science thing. So I know you guys may not follow this, but I'm pretty sciencey.
Science?
No, just science.
Batman's a scientist.
Basically, and it basically how Jupiter, the gravity of Jupiter keeps comets and asteroids and things like that, meteors from hitting Earth. And for so long, Alabama, Nick Saban has been like Jupiter, that has like protected the rest of college football from Georgia, and Georgia being the meteors and everything, because it seemed like everybody was just going to Georgia, and I was assuming Caleb Downs was going to Georgia. Now I'm starting to wonder if maybe Ohio State isn't the Georgia instead, if they continue to pull these guys in from Alabama. But Texas has gotten some. The redistribution of wealth, like you said, has gone to certainly not the poor. It has been Robin Hood is robbing the rich and also paying the rich.
All right, we're going to jump ahead on our super chats because ready for this transition? Hey, Tony. Speaking of Jupiter, we got to talk about another gas giant. Super chat from Omar Austin. Off-topic question. When out on the road during the season, who is the worst to follow into the bathroom? Also, who shares a bed when there's three of you and two queen beds? I'm going to leave the first half of that. I don't think we need to blow up anyone's spot. I'm going to be polite, and we're going to leave it alone. One of us ate 2 jars of pickles, but it's fine. We don't need to talk about that.
And I went to the room by myself for a while. Okay.
I gave him his space. I am generally the one who will choose to not sleep on I'll sleep on the couch or whatever, because I am the only one with young kids. So therefore I am the only one who will fall asleep 3 seconds into laying down. So I don't care where I'm laying. I will lay on the floor. I will lay on the sofa. I don't care. I am just perpetually tired because I have young kids. So I am always the one to not take the bed. That we used to do the cot of shame thing, and then it has sort of turned into like, well, it doesn't really matter. I'll just sleep on the air mattress or couch or whatever.
And part of the thing too is we work very hard to find hotels that have 2 beds and a sleeper sofa. We may stay 10 miles out of town, further out of town, but it is very important. I try to book the hotels that I find something of where Nobody is sleeping on an air mattress, and we did have a member who was very nice to supply us with an air mattress as the cot of shame. Fit
Ryan Dawes,
with
I believe.
Michigan sheets. Fit with Michigan sheets. Nobody wanted that heat right there. So I work really hard to make sure that we find hotels that have enough sleeping areas for people. And we've already booked for Oregon and Michigan State. I haven't booked any further. Both of those hotels, I will tell you, 2 beds and a sleeper sofa.
I will
Kevin
also
is basically
say
the Rick Steves, the Big Ten country.
I am newspapers, and not to go off too off topic. Newspapers do not share rooms like the newspaper reporters. Like if you're with a newspaper, you don't have to share a room with anybody. That's also why some newspapers didn't send any more than just one person to the Cotton Bowl. But there are also other outlets that have to share beds, and that's just the state of the industry. And I'm not to that point yet. I would just sleep on the floor rather than these queen beds today. I think they're getting smaller and smaller, honestly.
They are shrinkflation. It is shrinkflation. And just to keep anybody from
pillows.
Yes, exactly. To keep anybody from wanting to share beds with me, I wear a nightie to bed, so nobody wants any part of that.
Speaking of literally anything else in the world, super chat from Omar Austin. Not trying to be Buzz Killerman here, but who do you see transferring out with Caleb Downs coming in? I mean, right now, no one's going to transfer out because you can't transfer out until after the spring. Sure, it's possible that you lose a safety here, but the safety room, there's not that much depth there, and you've got Lathan.
They already lost Kai Stokes and some of these other guys.
Yeah, they have had a ton of turnover in that safety room over the last couple of years. So you could lose people further down the depth chart. That's a possibility, but the talent in that room is so young. There's not anyone in that room other than Lathan Ransom that's going into their final season. So you've got a bunch of guys who were freshmen in 2023. Maybe someone transfers and maybe you might lose a guy or two. It's possible, but I don't think there's anyone who's in the Kyle McCord, I'm going into my last season, I have to be the starter or else kind of situation.
No, and I think what the defense will also do is play multiple safeties at times. I think the concern would be, you look at Malik Hartford, who was looking at a starting job, was going to have to compete for it, but and still will, but also he is a valuable component to the defense, and I think he will feel that value. He will see that value that will be expressed to him, and then the defense that the safety duo that he and Caleb Downs could be in 2025 could be just as good as the one in 2024 with Lathan Ransom and Downs. And now, please, the super chat.
You want Kevin to read this one?
Let me fix my glasses. Jordan Kapler, super chat. I'm not trying to take all the credit for helping land Caleb Downs, but ever since I declared 2024 the quote-unquote despised Tom Orr year, good things have happened for OSU. Let's keep this rolling. Everyone join me in not liking Tom. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
I had assumed everybody had already joined that group. Can there possibly be more members? The meeting last week was the fire marshal's like, whoa, guys, we can't have you all in here at the same time. And then we had to split it up Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 to 9, 7 to 9. But, the minutes are all the same.
Next up from Sean Krutka. What a first day on the job for BOB. Oh, yes, by the way, Ohio State hired an offensive coordinator too, Bill O'Brien. You can find us talking for an hour and a half about that on our YouTube channel. Did a live show on Friday morning and thought, well, good. That's the last live show we'll have to do till next week because what else could possibly happen? And here we are. Erwin Lichtenberg, never seen Uncle Momentum swing so abruptly in the right direction over a 1 month span. Hashtag for the win. This is one of the biggest momentum swing months that you've seen from Ohio State. I think that may be reflective of, okay, everyone knows the margin for error here is not real big, and the expectations are what they are for 2024. So you better throw whatever you got, you better throw it into making it happen this year.
Everything's on the table. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah. No, I just sorry, I was reading something else. Kevin, go ahead. I have been.
That's Garfield.
You go ahead and read. I'm going to say there's there's a lot of pressure there. Michigan has won the game the last 3 years. Everybody had to sit there and watch the temporary championship of what's happening, and we can get into that in another show. I know I see Tom rolling his eyes, but it's 24, so we're not listening to him. You have a new AD, you have a new president. While I don't think that there's a case of being like, oh, he's truly on the hot seat at this point, it's important to come and show out at this point. And everything is coming together at the right time, whether or not they've cracked the enigma for NIL or whatever it is. The fact that they're reshaping the staff again, and Ryan Day has shown in the past that he's not afraid to reshape the staff when necessary. Well, it was certainly necessary. It's certainly necessary to be more aggressive in the portal. When you have misses, you can't just sit there and say, well, we'll ride what we have. When everybody else is going out and shoring up, Michigan has gone through several iterations of shoring up its offensive line and has won the Joe Moore a couple of years, was a finalist last year, sat there and showed Washington what it thought of Washington's Joe Moore award-winning offensive line and just battered them all night in that game. But it's crazy just how things have kind of come together at this point. But I think a lot of people are feeling highly motivated. I think there are a lot of reasons to be motivated with just the changing conditions around the sport in general and around the university in general.
It does feel like things have been kicked up into another gear, but I will remind people there are no banners for the off season. So you've got to turn this into something tangible and real, but this is kind of how you do it.
Yeah, this is, you haven't won anything yet. You haven't won anything in September. You haven't won anything in October. But you're doing a lot of the stuff right now that you will need to win in September and October and beyond, most importantly. Here's one from Fort Wayne Buckeye. Thought exercise was losing to Missouri in the fashion they did the best thing for the long-term success of Ohio State and Coach Day, given what's happened in the last 3 weeks. Did they have to lose in that ugly a fashion, Tony? Or, I mean, I think the heat was certainly going to be on. I don't know if, even if they win the Cotton Bowl, if Devin Brown stays healthy and has a just okay game, where he's not like slinging for 600 yards and 7 touchdowns or anything. He's, they win 21-13 and he throws for 220 yards and 1 touchdown and 1 pick. It's neither good nor bad. It's just fine. Are they in the same spot now? I think they might be largely in the same spot now, because I think the urgency was created on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and then maybe also a little bit down in Houston about a week and a half ago.
I don't think the Cotton Bowl hurt at all, but I'm with you on the urgency. But in regards to the Cotton Bowl, I reminded of Woody Hayes saying nothing cleanses the soul like getting the hell kicked out of you, So that's not that they got the hell kicked out of them, but there was some of that, and the offensive line had some of that. And I think it allows you to just reset, go back to the 2016 playoff game against Clemson, got shut out after the game. Urban Meyer said this will never happen again at Ohio State. Sometimes these things need to happen for everybody to get on board. And I'm sure there's a large segment of the Ohio State administration that was on board with doing everything we could, but was the collective arm of Ohio State as on board as they were following that game, where it's like, we have an opportunity to do something here. We have an opportunity to make an impact. We need to be more organized. We need to be more striking out in terms of finding more donors and being more creative in the space. And I do think it helped. I think there's going to be a charge regardless, based on the Michigan loss, obviously, but I think they were helped. So yeah, and in that way, I would say it's the best thing long term.
When do you?
Because what does a win matter?
When do you fix a car and when do you replace the car? I mean, either way, that something is wrong and you need to make some adjustments. But I think that if Ohio State wins the Cotton Bowl or whatever, well, this car isn't bad. got sentimental feelings for it. Yeah, the tires are bald. We should probably do that. We should probably, fix the AC unit and some other things. But when you sit there and the car explodes, you know that there's no saving it. And the car kind of exploded at Jerry World, and it was time to go cash for clunkers and just start anew. And while you're bringing back so much of the team, and maybe saying start anew is not necessarily fair, they've gone in with a vengeance in terms of the portal and making changes and some of these other types of things. Just the outlay that they've done to bring all of these draft eligible players back. I don't know if all of this comes together. I don't know if there's such a unified feeling for most of the returning players to come back. I think they had to lose in such a fashion that they weren't going to be able to get over it. If you win the game, it's like, yeah, well, the season sucked. I guess we didn't accomplish any of our goals, and we won a New Year's Six bowl game, but it wasn't a playoff. There's no meaning to it. I think that there's a lot to it, and I think that, again, I think that without Tat 5, does Urban Meyer ever come to Ohio State? Without this, does that happen? There's so many intersections that we come to in life, whether it's in our own personal lives or our rooting lives, that everything happens for a reason. And while we can't explain it in the moment, and maybe we can never explain it, we're going to try to explain this one.
All right, Omar Austin Super Chat says, those aren't pillows. This feels very much like an if you know, you know. Here's one that I thought was interesting from Zach. I'd have loved to witness that at-home visit. This coaching staff is crushing it. The coaching staff, 3 members at least, flew down to meet with Caleb Downs. And, at that point, it sure felt like everything was trending Georgia. All the national people were telling you it was trending Georgia with Caleb Downs. Kevin said it earlier, coffee is for closers. And whatever it was that happened in that recruitment, Ohio State, he was devastated. He was really upset to not go to Ohio State, but it was kind of this is straight from our recruiting guy, from Mark. Said he was really upset to not go to Ohio State coming out of high school, but just felt like the defense wasn't quite where they needed it to be, and Nick Saban is Nick Saban, and so as they say, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, but they made the absolute most of their second chance to make a second impression.
James Laurinaitis today tweeted at 5:20 p.m. just capital letters, with 5 exclamation points. That is the second time in the last 2 days he's tweeted that. Now that is going to become the thing. It's the bat signal. Whenever this dude tweets something, it's just going to be the gift of it's happening. Because who knows what it is, and apparently that's what that was referring to, the exclamation points from James Laurinaitis, who is the first to break news around here, even though he's not going to give us all of the tea. He's just going to let you know, get ready to start drinking tea.
True Frank, speaking of potential news for Ohio State, True Frank says, start the Saban rumors. At this rate, why not? That is 2024 number 1 quarterback in the class, Julian Saban. He committed to Alabama, signed with Alabama, enrolled at Alabama, and then this week hit the portal. And there was sort of a flood of national folks all rushing to tell you he was going to Ohio State. That still, has not committed to Ohio State yet. We'll see how that goes. Sometimes in the case of Caleb Downs, that initial rush turns out to not be right, but that's, certainly one of the possible pieces of news that we are keeping an eye on. And Mark Giffler has had a bunch of information on Julian Saban and a bunch of the other things going on right now on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse at BuckeyeHuddle.com. He dropped, it was 6 or 7 different guys, a ton of great intel on Friday. So you can go find a bunch of that stuff there. That is not my information to share. So that's you can go find that there.
Yeah, I'm having a little FOMO. I really kind of want to be on the board right now, seeing what's happening on the Huddle board over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And I kind of want to be on Georgia boards right now too, because they were damn sure they were landing this kid. They were damn sure. I had plenty of Georgia fans get in my mentions and say, "You're wasting your time. Don't look stupid. Don't look stupider. Stop talking about this. He's going to Georgia."
Well, here's a Georgia fan in our comments here. Shoot him 556. I'm in a shambles right now. LOL. Just kidding. Congrats, guys. He is a monster. And this is one of those things where, it's very easy if a guy, the old Twitter bit or comment section bit, like, oh, well, he committed to a different school. Our coaching staff had secretly cooled on him. They didn't really want him.
We only want kids who want to be Buckeyes. Right.
This is one where all you got to do is watch. All you got to do is turn on a game, and it's like, oh yeah, no. There's a reason that Nick Saban wanted him, and Kirby Smart wanted him, and Ohio State wants him. I mean, everyone wants him. There's a reason for that, and Georgia's doing just fine in recruiting and the portal. KJ Bolden is going to be a pretty darn good safety. So Georgia got the better of Ohio State and some other big name teams for KJ Bolden recently. So, Georgia's doing just fine. Don't feel too bad for Georgia, but yeah, this is one where there's no denying how big this is for Ohio State. Here's one from Senor T. It would be a totally unexpected wild check in case you missed it. Tony joined us a little late. Gerd, power pauses Tom midway through the podcast. Just going to throw that out there. This is one I think you got to make him. You gotta make him wait to pay that one off. Here, okay, from Moose 1066. So I suppose if a player is paying for their tuition from their NIL package, the 85 player roster limit is basically meaningless, right? And that's something that has already happened.
Yeah, well, Lorenzo Styles Jr. I don't know that he was on scholarship, but this has also been something that has been put out as a boogeyman where programs like Alabama and Georgia and Texas A&M are going to be able to have 105-star players, and they can just pay guys that aren't going to be on scholarship. And it's like, this is going to be used sparingly because players still want to be like, well, you're going to have to pay somebody so much to have them be okay with being a walk-on when somebody else would be more than happy to put you on scholarship. There's still, I think, some stigma to that where it's like, well, what, you don't like me enough to be on scholarship? Alabama likes me enough to be on scholarship. What's the disconnect? And so I think there's still some of that will come into play. And the fact that this is now, 2 or 3 years into NIL and it's not a widespread thing, I wouldn't worry about that right now.
Yeah, to Tony's point, they've taken away a lot of the things of where walk-ons used to not be able to get training table and some things that's changed. So really it's only just certain designations, but there is still a connotation there of being a walk-on versus being a scholarship player. There was a lot of talk about Nebraska being able to take advantage of it. Nebraska has always had a long-standing tradition of its walk-on program and everything that's come out of it. Well, Nebraska's having a hard enough time fielding 1 to 85. They really shouldn't be concerned about 86 to 105 right now.
All right, here's a super chat from Omar Austin. What role do you see Corey Dennis playing? Corey Dennis, of course, was the quarterbacks coach for the last 4 years for Ohio State. In the release where Ohio State officially announced the hiring of Bill O'Brien on Friday, they said it was sort of a weird phrasing, but he was basically, here's the exact quote. It is anticipated that Corey Dennis, quarterbacks coach the past 4 seasons, will transition into a still-to-be-determined role with the program. Now, the fact that the program is saying that it's anticipated this will happen, well, I think that probably means it's already happening. And there's been conversation about, does he transfer into like a role in terms of NIL? Because he's certainly someone who has, been solid in recruiting and is someone who had, you hear positive things about him from recruits. Is it something like that? I mean, Tony, you talked about this a little bit on the morning show. There's a couple other possibilities where you could take on some kind of a non-countable assistant role.
Yeah, Ohio State has one with Todd Fitch, who works with the quarterbacks, where these are your analysts, your QC people. You also have Tim Hinton, who was the former tight ends coach, who got bumped to like Ohio high school liaison once Kevin Wilson came on and they needed that spot, but still works with certain players and positions and is around. You see him all the time. So we've talked about this before, where if you go to an Ohio State practice, the number of employees is not much fewer than the number of players on the field in terms of what is going on there. So there's still a lot that can be done, and that's not even the administrative offices or recruiting offices or who knows what. There's a long line of things. It's an industry that somebody can be very happy in for a very long time as a state employee, and you don't need to be there for a very long time. You just need to be there for long enough time that 25 years, then you can cash in. You won't even need, it doesn't even matter that you married into a very nice family. You could do very well on your own.
You can get all that Oprah's money. Now, Tom, raise your hand. Raise it higher. That's coaching. That's coaching. Be sure to thank everybody. Be sure to thank whoever brought you here. A parent, a family friend. We've heard all the things at the camps from Tim Hinton, and I'm sure he would love to share some of those responsibilities with Corey Dennis.
Next super chat from Chase Hoffman. When do you get to talk to Coach Day again? That is, I think we're anticipating that will be on National Signing Day, which is the first Wednesday of February. That's typically when we get a lot of the early enrollees, the new transfers. We get a chance to talk to all those guys. That's not 100% in stone yet, but that's just typically been how that has worked. What are you going to ask about first? Coaching staff, specific transfers. We got Ryan Day for about 42 seconds during the Ross Bjork press conference. I tweeted out a video of it, and it was kind of like you can watch him like edging away, like he doesn't want to talk to us. Because one of the questions was, I think he was asked about hiring a new offensive coordinator. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, there's, we're looking at everything, and we'll let you know when there's something to say. And then, a day later there was something to say. But Tony, what are you most interested in asking Ryan Day about?
Well, and I think everybody on the beat could talk to him for an hour asking questions. The good news is we'll probably talk to him for about 45 minutes, and all of those questions will get asked by all of us. But I do want to know about the process of giving up the play calling and reflecting on the Eli Drinkwitz conversation, that the relationship with Bill O'Brien, obviously, the last month, how that has come about. There's only so much there that he's going to tell you, but I know there was a thought talking with OSU SIDs about, hey, what's the schedule going to look like for the next month? There's some thought that maybe we get the enrolled transfers first, and then maybe the coaches on signing day, and then perhaps the early enrollees on signing day as well. But I would not expect Ryan Day until before signing day. But right now there is so much going on that they might need to anyway. Like once the coaching staff is set, maybe then where you just knock it all out in terms of the coaches. But there is so much going on right now that you could just go ahead and, hey, just run on over on a Monday. We'll spend an hour. We'll talk to Ryan Day. But as of yet, we don't have any of that from OSU.
Right, exactly. And there's not a chance for them until they've filled out the coaching staff, whether or not that is an assistant defensive line coach, whether or not that is a permanent elevation of James Laurinaitis, whatever that may be. They're not going to want to bring us in and have us ask 4,003 questions about what's happening with the coaching staff. I'd like to ask them about in your experience, about where NIL has gone at this point, because it seems like the spigot has been opened and it is now a fire hose of what's going on. Both 1870 Foundation, the Foundation, or 1870 Society, the Foundation, both really active on social media right now. I saw that there was a campaign from the Foundation. Their board was doubling all of the small donations that were coming in. 1870 was really rocking too. Just the impact of that, because they haven't figured out now, there's still a very real chance come August that it's all going to move in-house. And then I would like to have another bite at the apple talking to Ross Bjork about what that looks like. But he can't really say much until that happens.
Yeah, and everyone, like you said, everyone's on social media taking credit for it. We all know who really to credit, of course, and that is Young Mayo, who says, "I choose to believe my $10 NIL donation was the difference. I will be expecting my national championship ring in the mail in a few months." Well, if you get a national championship ring in the mail in a few months, Ohio State will not have won the national championship in a few months. So I don't think you'd like the most recent national championship ring you might be able to receive in the mail in a few months. You may want to just push that one back till at least 12 months. And,
I think they'll get an opportunity to buy a replica from Jostens for like $119.99, something like that. A nice replica championship ring of whatever for contributing. But I would love to see what percentage of the donations or the money and the collectives comes from fans and the $10 a month, $20 a month thing versus the big money donors. Because I don't think this stuff happens without the big money donors this last month or the last 2 months. But it is interesting to see the weaponization of the fan base, and I'd be interested to know how much that has impacted things. Obviously, it's not hurting, but I wonder, is it 2%? Is it 20%? What is that number?
And I've seen a lot of people that I follow on social who have posted screenshots and are like, I've never donated to the NIL foundations before, but here's my record of it. And if I can sit there and look in a small space of just 30, 40 people that I know, that I follow on social and have conversations with, and if 50% of them have donated, and we're not getting into whether it's $10 or $20 or $100, whatever it may be, I think all of that adds up after a while. And I think also the thing too is like, well, John Doe just donated and Jane Smith just donated. I guess I better get on board too, or I'm going to look like a schlep.
Can I bring up a great point from our message board from Poster Cajones? If Caleb Downs redshirts 1 year, he can play for Ohio State against Alabama in 2027.
That is technically a thing that he could do, and that could happen. Yes, that is all technically true.
There are choices, and that is one.
Super chat from David Greenshield. Do you think in this NIL world we get to contract, salary cap, and players with agents? This is different college football world.
The salary cap will be interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you can have a cap.
When they do break off to this in the next 3 to 5 years, what Ross Bjork called the tipping point, will there be an agreement of, hey, guys, can we not spend so much? Can we not spend this number? And I don't think that'll happen. I think you're looking at a Major League Baseball type of thing. But there are already contracts, and their players all have agents. Every player that is doing anything that meaningful in the NIL space has agent 'S agents, and so they're being educated about it. They're being like, this is all above board, and this is a business for a lot of these guys. There's a reason Jeremiah Smith committed to Ohio State at 12 p.m. and the paperwork didn't get signed until like 9 p.m. This is a very lucrative and serious thing that is going on. So there was also, and I don't know how true this is, so I'm going to speak it out on the internet. One of a commit from somewhere else went into the portal and had to come back because the rumor was that he had signed his media rights, his NIL rights, over to that collective. And if he would have had to give the money back or something to that effect, which is one way to maybe sign a deal to keep a player from transferring. But I can't believe that player's agent would actually allow that. So it's a whole new world. And that's why Ross Bjork said he just wants clarity in the next 3 to 5 years. That's what he's looking forward to. All of the legally defensible rules and regulations, and then to operate with that. And Ohio State has been criticized for being slow to go full guns blazing, but it sure seems like they're double fisting right now with the revolvers.
Erwin Lichtenberg says Missouri loss, no one. OSU Board of Directors execute Order 66.
Tom, do you know that reference?
I don't know that reference, and also there's another question. Let's go ahead and explain this one in 30 seconds or less, and then I'm going to find the other one that I looked at. I'm like, well, this is probably mean about me, but I don't know. So,
Kevin,
but I don't
Go
know
ahead,
what
Tony.
it says.
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, Order 66 is just where in Star Wars where an order was put forth to execute all of the Jedi, Tom. So it was a very sad day, very tragic day in a far, far away place a long time ago.
All right, this one is from It's Just Me, Tim 79. I hope you guys know what this is because I don't. Tom Orr apparently is wearing the Galadriel's cape. Does anyone know what that is?
Is that the guy
Lord of
from?
the
Is that
Rings.
the guy from The Hangover, or is that Galifianakis? I don't know.
No, that's Galifianakis. Galadriel was an elf sorceress queen. I don't know the exact terminology from Lord of the Rings, played by Cate Blanchett, if you would remember, right?
I know who Cate Blanchett is, but is this like Lord of the Rings stuff? I didn't really watch Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I said Lord of the Rings.
The tip off is when Sony literally said the phrase Lord of the Rings. Yes. That was the point at which I figured out it was to do with Lord of the Rings. All right.
If it's not about pickles, I'm not listening.
Let's see. Let's go through. Sorry, we're gonna try and roll through some of these because I have to get up at 5 a.m. to take my son to hockey practice. Hey, remember when I talked about how I'm tired all the time? Jazz Holland says Buckeyes going to win the national championship the next 2 seasons. I mean, that you could probably parlay that for a pretty good amount in Vegas. A 12-team playoff, it certainly makes it more likely Ohio State's going to get in and have an opportunity to win it. So that is a positive. You got to win more games, and you're not playing top 4 teams in every single one of those games, but you have seen plenty of very good Ohio State teams, excellent Ohio State teams, outstanding Ohio State teams not win national championships. I don't think you could ever assume a national championship, but they are doing everything they can to put themselves in a position to win the national championship this year.
Tom, you are the person who always says you can't predict a 12-0 season for anybody.
Yes.
Are you changing that for this Ohio State team for 2024? Or are you going to remain the worst hater who has ever lived?
The second one. I think you gotta remember, they're going to Oregon, and we had someone in there saying, let me find it. Here we go. Mike Schaefer says OSU versus Oregon twice. Oregon versus OSU twice in 2024. Mark it down. Now, Oregon does play Oregon State, so they probably do have 2 OSU games on their schedule already. I believe the Civil War just continues this year. But either way, I know what he means. I think Ohio State and Oregon are probably going to be the 2 teams favored to go through the Big Ten and meet again in the championship. But Ohio State has to play in Eugene in week 4 or 5, whatever it is. Got to go to Penn State. You got Michigan at home. This is not an easy schedule for Ohio State. They don't play anyone great out of conference, but this is not an easy schedule for Ohio State. And teams trip up and lose. That is a thing that happens in college football. If you are playing a schedule where you're playing 4 teams and you've got a 75% chance to beat each of those 4 teams, you are way below 50-50 to win all 4 of those games. That is how it works. Unless you're Florida State in the ACC in the 90s, where you're just playing garbage teams that have no business on the field with you every single week, odds are you're going to lose a game.
Oregon is week 7, by the way.
Okay.
Ohio State will have some time, which will be obviously good for them. I did see one of the national sites. I don't know if it was like whatever it was, projected the playoffs next year, and they had Ohio State and Michigan in the Rose Bowl in the second round, which would be incredible.
Oh man,
I think we would all love to see the Big Ten championship game played in the Rose Bowl, but the second round, Ohio State number 1 or 2 seed in their rankings against Michigan in the Rose Bowl, and please, home jerseys only.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Like we've had the opportunity to see this happen a couple times in the last couple of years, where it was possible you could have seen these teams play twice. Ohio State and Michigan could play in the Big Ten championship game this year. That's a possibility. Ohio State and Michigan in a playoff game, though. We talked about this in 2022 when they were both in the playoff, and they could have been playing for the national championship. And like, this is not just the biggest game in Ohio State history, not just the biggest game in Michigan history, not just the biggest game in, Big Ten history, like maybe college football history, like the two biggest rivals playing head to head for a national championship. If they're playing in the quarterfinals in the Rose Bowl, it's not quite that level, but also the fact that it's in the Rose Bowl kind of raises it a couple notches. So, yes. I mean, if there is a place I can sign for that to happen, sign me up, please. Can you imagine? The only disappointing thing is there's only, how much time is there before those games? Yeah. It's only like,
I have the schedule for 24 here on my phone. Give me a second.
It's like 10 days between each playoff game.
It's super tight. Yeah. I'll find it here in a second. I've got
Kevin's
here. The first round games are the December 20th and 21st. The quarters are the 31st and 1st, with the Rose being on the 1st. The semis are the 9th and the 10th, and then the championship game is on the 20th.
Every 10 days. 40 podcasts over that span of 10 days, like 4 a day.
Over.
Well, if Ohio State and Michigan would meet in the Rose Bowl, and it were a situation of where Ohio State did not have to play a first-round game, when are we heading out to Los Angeles? Directly from the Big Ten championship game?
Directly from Michigan Stadium, where Michigan is playing its first-round game, is probably the actual answer to that question. But we don't need to make our travel plans just yet. Yeah, I just blew Tony's mind. Don't worry, I've been thinking about this already. Let's just move on before Tony just explodes. From Trevor Denton, with the addition of Caleb Downs, do you see Jim Knowles going back to the aggressive single high safety like he did in 2022? I'm going to be trying to record with Ross Fulton at some point, either over the weekend or early next week. I was all set to talk to him about Bill O'Brien. We've got some other stuff to talk about now too, so we may get multiple morning shows with Ross. I'm interested in his thoughts on that. Good. But I think the answer to me is you're just going to do more stuff. You don't have to do just single high stuff. That was the thing. You got real predictable doing the single high stuff, but you can do the single high stuff. You can do that as part of your toolbox. You just want as many different looks, as many different schemes, as many different coverages in there as you can get. And this certainly expands what you can do.
No, I agree. I mean, you don't want to, the thing is like, there's about, all right, we're going to disguise this and disguise that. But if Ohio State is able, like Jim Knowles, when he came to Ohio State, talked about, we're not going to practice a lot of stuff that we're not going to run. But you sit there and you have a veteran-laden team and all this experience and all this talent, you can install a lot of stuff at that point leading up and have a lot of different looks that you can go to and really try and keep guys off balance. And I'll be very interested. I don't normally watch Tom's shows. Shh, don't tell him. But with Ross, I will watch that. I'm very interested to get some of those answers.
All right, whose dog is that? Because it wasn't mine.
No, that's my cat.
Mr. Business.
Mr. Business.
Come here, Business.
Mr. Business, the barking cat.
Sure.
Oh, you're not going to believe it. A cat's not listening. Oh, there he is.
So, hello, Mr.
Until he lays down on the keyboard, and it's not really a cat.
This is a real quick.
Real quick, Tom.
Okay. Don't have to ask me twice. True Franks, this is a callback to earlier and the conversation around NIL and how much of a role it's really playing in all of this stuff. True Frank says, Devin Sanchez's dad even said, I loved it. The only NL we're worried about has an F in between. So NFL, we're not worried about NIL. And that's one of those things. We've talked about this a bunch in the past where you have the programs that have to just buy players and you can only win one way. And the way is you spend more on NIL. And those are the Texas A&Ms, those are the Miamis, and those are the programs where you can't sell the development, you can't sell the championship history. There are the Alabamas, well, the Nick Saban Alabamas. We'll see what Alabama is moving forward on this front. Georgia, Ohio State, where you see the guys going in the NFL draft. You see the first-round picks year after year. You can sell that. And it's very easy to sell a quarterback on, hey, whatever you're getting NIL offer wise, and a lot of the numbers that you've seen are not accurate. There are a lot of numbers that get thrown around that are higher
You
than
mean
the
the
actual
NIL
numbers.
valuations are not right?
Well, some of those are low because they're based, I think, on the actual NIL, and some of them are wildly high. And some of the, the people on Twitter with hashtag sources that, this guy's going to get $7 million this year. No, he's not. Oh, they're going to put together $20 million for Marvin Harrison. He's going to come back. No, they're not. No, that's stupid. But you do have the opportunity to, if you're a quarterback and someone offers you $1 million, if you're going to, it's not that hard for Ryan Day or other people who develop quarterbacks well to say, that's great. Do you want to know how many of my starting quarterbacks over the last few years have made $10 million, $20 million, $30 million? What do you think CJ Stroud's going to make on his second contract? Because I bet it's more than $1 million. So
yes.
there's if you can sell the NFL and do it with a track record to, behind it, that makes it a lot easier, and you're not leaning on NIL nearly as much.
Mika Hanna, I was just going to jump in. I'll be quick on this one. A lot of people are saying that Ohio State has lost a lot of players to Miami because of NIL, and I'm speaking more in terms of defensive linemen. No, Ohio State is losing players to Miami because of Larry Johnson being in his early 70s and just not knowing what's going to go on there. I think that, if Ohio State had a better plan in place there, we would not see those issues because, to the previous comment, the NFL, you're going to make a lot more money in the NFL. You sit there and you take that pittance that you're going to get compared to NFL money if you're not really so sure about where you're going to be at that point. And everybody's situation is different, and a lot of people are growing up in tough situations, and that money is necessary to live and to support your family. But to like Devin Sanchez's dad's point, the NL with the F in the middle is the focal point for a lot of these players that we're talking about.
I did agree with somebody, I don't know if it was on the board or something, saying that we need to have the Sanchez family get a podcast on the
I said that. I said that in our text thread.
I don't know who it was. Somebody had mentioned that. Tom, was that you?
No, it didn't. I mean, at the time I saw it, I didn't think it was a very good point, but just hearing you say it now was kind of made me really think. Mika Kirk's commit. I don't know if I actually dropped out there when Kevin dropped me out. Mika Hanna wants to know, when does Dominic Kirk's commit, defensive lineman out of Northeast Ohio? He commits
when he commits.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no date.
He commits when the graphic comes out. National Signing Day is the first Wednesday of February, so you would assume sometime between now and then. I think the trend lines there for Ohio State have been very positive the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He'll commit sometime. He'll commit to wherever he commits to sometime between now and National Signing Day at some point. Another one from Mika. Now we need Jason Taylor, and Kevin, you've been kind of leading us on this particular beat. So let people know the latest on what's going on with Jason Taylor, what you're hearing.
I talked to somebody down on that side, on the Florida side of things, and I was like, haven't heard anything recently. Is this thing still real? And he's like, yeah, it's still real. And I'm like, what are the shots? And he's like, well, I don't want to really be this guy, but I mean, it's kind of a coin flip. But Ohio State is still pursuing. I think if Ohio State is able to put its plan together, it is to bring in Jason Taylor as that D-line coach. And then Larry is here for the 24 season, then maybe you're able to move him into a different type of role, or maybe finally the NC2A allows more than 10 counters at that point for coaches, and then James Laurinaitis gets his position. But that's kind of where things stand at this point. When you're dealing with coaching moves, you're not going to get daily updates. They're not going to put edits out. You're not going to get Jason Taylor putting out something with an Ohio State hat and a Miami hat and an NFL hat or whatever. We just kind of have to wait on there. But I promise you, Mika, I'm staying on top of it. I'm talking to people down that way as much as I can, because going and doing Southern Swing every year for many, many years, I know a lot of people around South Florida, and I have a feeling like that I will be able to stay on top of it.
And I think this is one of these things where we have a bunch of different connections. A lot of us have different connections with different places. And when people are like, why would I pay to be on a site like Buckeye Huddle? Well, this is why, because as you know, Kevin just was talking about some of his connections, and he's kind of had the really good info on the Jason Taylor thing, as well as a couple other stories. Mark Givler on Friday had a post which talked about Caden Proctor, Caleb Downs, Julian Sayin, I think Dominic Kirks, the 2026 quarterback whose name I'm blanking on right now out of Nashville, just like a ton of different people. Mark is about Jared Curtis. Yeah. Mark is about as connected as anyone. So this is, and when it's not our information to share, in the case of a lot of that information, well, we don't share it here. You have to become a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com to get access to all of that stuff. Here's a good
and
one
also,
from
Tom, you threw Bill O'Brien's name out there a week ago, so there's some inside information there. And also, I'm there.
You have had you have been talking to NFL scouts about Bill O'Brien pretty relentlessly for the last couple of days and getting
they like
right
it, by the way.
I mean, so Tony does stuff. Don't worry, he's there too. Mike Ferguson's speaking of things we're all well known for. Mike Ferguson says, Tom, is there a bylaw that governs transfer portal travel reimbursements on a Saturday morning? Well, yes, I'm so glad you asked. It's NCAA bylaw 7.3.2 brackets B. Now, the important thing, no, that's fine. We're done. Moving on. Doug Shepard wants to know, when does official winter conditioning start? That I'm gonna guess is
we're right about there.
I think school's open, and I think you might start seeing you get those videos. Don't worry, you'll know the first day they're doing it because OSU will tweet out a video. I'm gonna guess if it's not this week, it's next, but I think it might be this week. It's usually January 20th, give or take, because by the time we talk to the guys on National Signing Day, they've usually been working for a couple weeks. So I'm going to guess that's a this week thing.
Yep.
All right. Jock Fistic says, what about the offensive line? The addition of the Bama Center is okay, but they need at least one stud offensive tackle. I would personally suggest just being happy for 45 minutes, and then you can worry about that. But, Tony, you may have other thoughts.
I saw a team win the national championship this season without a stud offensive tackle. And Michigan trotted out 5 different tackles throughout the course of the season to make things work. I don't think you need a great offensive line. I think Ohio State's offensive line has enough as it is based on everything else around them. Would a great left tackle be fantastic? Yes, it sure would. Then you can move Josh Simmons to right tackle and Josh Fryer to right guard. But I still think you can move Josh Fryer to right guard anyway and move Luke Montgomery in there, just based on the way that Ryan Day has talked about Luke Montgomery. And I don't even really care about the way Justin Fry has talked about anybody. When the head coach is talking about freshmen, we've talked about this in the past, when they're talking about certain guys, and those guys are playing, Luke Montgomery played as a true freshman. I think you could see him at right tackle, Josh Fryer at right guard. I know he concerns some people. Josh Simmons, I think, played perfectly okay. But is that the standard at Ohio State? Is that the standard of a national championship offensive line? Sometimes. I don't think Georgia's offensive line was not all that great in 2022. Michigan's offensive line had issues last year. I think you can work around it, but you have to work around it.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Dynamite drop in, Monty.
I'm running out of my vodka soda here. I'm ready.
Oh, well, I have water. Look at me. I'm the boring one again.
Bargadeck says at 5. I have to get up.
I am. Yes. Yeah. And hey, look at me. It's 10:06 here on the East Coast. Well, I may drop out at some point, and you boys keep going. Markedeck says Bama fans were saying OSU for downs and saying that adding Bill O'Brien was punishment for stealing him.
I
So
you know,
they're salty
jokingly,
about scoring 40-plus points per game under him, losing in the national championship one year, and then the second year, 2022, was not as great. But the thing is like nobody's really going to sit there and praise somebody who leaves. I don't hear a lot of stories of, yeah, he left to go do this, but we really liked him or whatever. I mean, it's fine. Even the college football nerds, who I respect them to high heaven. I think they do a really good job. We're very critical of Bill O'Brien, and we kind of got into it in DMs, and I never really got a great answer as to why they weren't happy. But just to tell a quick story from the earlier show today, another person I talked to that I really respect a lot was like, they should have gotten Tommy Rees. And
no,
at that point, I'm like, blink twice if you're being held hostage, because obviously this isn't real.
I think they should have gotten Tommy Rees. Here's today's newspaper.
Why are you blinking the Morse code for 3rd and 9? I don't understand. MarketX says there's been a lot of NIL chat. MarketX says Florida's already being investigated for breaking a contract with a player. That is the Jaden Rashada situation. My understanding, my elevator pitch understanding of the Jaden Rashada situation is that there were a bunch of NIL deals that when he didn't go to Florida, they were trying to break them, but they were breaking them based on the fact that they were contingent on him enrolling, which then would be an NCAA violation. So it's welcome to the between times when we're after the before times, but before the after times and the long-term solution times. So lots of stupid stuff happening right now. And if you can just avoid doing the stupid stuff, you're going to go far in life right now.
Really quick, Florida State and Florida are both being looked at for NIL. Who would believe that Miami with John Ruiz is the one of the big three in Florida that is not underwater right now with the NC2A? I was thinking about that at dinner tonight. I'm like, is it just probably a matter of time until that one happens?
Hey, back to Caleb Downs real quick. He has done something that Ohio State has not done in a decade. Do you guys know what it is?
He's done something that Ohio State has not done in a decade.
Yep.
I guess I don't know.
You're killing the show here, Furl Mangus. Come on, let's go.
Is his secretary named Lincoln or
punt return touchdown?
Oh, is that legal?
That's not legal. That's not legal. You're not allowed to do that stuff.
Maybe under a new coach, new special teams coach, they might decide, hey, let's give this a shot.
Mark Rogers, Mark Rogers, who absolutely feels my pain working with these two. Tom, great job breaking things down and carrying the two knuckleheads on with you.
You can take my slot Wednesdays at 11 a.m. on the Voice of College Football, and I can just be a knucklehead somewhere else. Then I'm okay with that.
Are we not doing phrasing anymore?
No, we're not.
Too much time passed since before the start of that comment, apparently. Hummus Hero says, I would be a bit concerned about the meshing of this team with so many portal additions if it wasn't for the core group of seniors all returning. Best of both worlds.
I saw, I think there have been a few of the comments like this, and I think I saw the first portion of that, and I wanted to say that Ohio State brought in 9 transfers last year. They brought in 5 so far this year. And had they not brought in Josh Simmons, and we could throw John Froman in there at long snapper, throw in Davis Igbinosun. But I think that the point is absolutely correct with the seniors that are returning. That sets the standard. That continues the standard. That sets the guardrails on the program. But also, they're not going to bring in wild people. They're vetting people. These are guys that will fit the culture, players that they knew Caleb Downs for a while now. I don't know what their relationship was with Quinshon Judkins, but they're not going to bring in people that are going to upset the apple cart. And not that it's a thing of where like, we don't want them to make a quarterback unhappy. It's like you don't want to make the culture bumpy. You want to have the right fits. And so they vet that very seriously, and they will continue to do that. So I'm not concerned at all about that. Plus, this is the way the game is played now. So the portal is just another arm of recruiting.
Well, it's to the point of everybody sees every offensive tackle that goes in the portal. Well, what are the chances of landing him? What are the chances? Is Ohio State going after this guy? Ohio State does a lot of vetting of the guys it's looking at. That's not saying that somebody that they don't pursue is a bad dude. That's not the case, but they're looking for the ones that are absolutely going to fit. They're going to put the time and the effort on the guys they absolutely have an opportunity to land. It's really easy to say, well, they should go recruit this kid from suburban Portland, Oregon, and they're going to have no opportunity potentially of landing him. They don't recruit the state of Oregon. They don't have a lot of ties there. I understand now that Oregon's part of the Big Ten, but I'm just using it as an example. That's not necessarily going to be the case. So what Ohio State does is targeted, and that's very much the same case of its high school recruiting. It has had a long relationship in recruiting somebody like I don't know, like Sanchez or whoever, or Tavian St. Clair. We can just kind of start going through 25 guys. It's not a spur of the moment type of situation of being like, well, we see the stars there, so we should probably just go after this kid because he's probably pretty good. They vet all of this, and that's why people are like, well, I don't understand why Ohio State, here's the top 25 according to the consensus list, and Ohio State only recruited 5 of these guys. Well, they're the recruiting staff, Mark Pantoni and everybody else, they do a really good job of going through that because they want to make sure we don't hear the stories about Ohio State having a lot of locker room issues and culture issues. I mean, that's not been the case. I could remember the last culture issue, and we're well beyond a decade ago on the last one I can think of, when there certainly were reports of a team not wanting to play in a bowl game and so on and so forth. But then again, I didn't want to cover the bowl game either.
Nope, we're just going to move on. We're just going to move on. Doug Shepard says, the way Ryan Day is addressing problems from last year's team, I'm certain they're working to get the offensive line better and get Larry Johnson's replacement in-house before spring practice starts. Yeah, I think however aware, I have said this on shows before, but however much you think about Ohio State football and however obsessed you think you are with Ohio State football, I can assure you there are literally hundreds of people in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center who think about it more than you do, who are more dialed in with it than you are, who are, they are aware of what the issues are. They are more aware of the stakes than you are. There is more on the line for them this season than there is for you. Don't worry. They know. Our comment section is not the only, those are not the only folks in the state of Ohio who are aware that Ohio State's offensive line was not at a championship caliber in 2023.
No, I'll be interested to see what Bill O'Brien is able to do in that regard as well, in terms of developing and drawing up that offense to make it a better run offense. I think if you're a better run offense, I think pass protection, Ross has talked to you about this, I think, before, Tom. Pass protection, they were pretty fine. They were pretty okay. It's the run game, if you get that more established. And I think Will Howard helps that with his running ability, adding the Quinshon Judkins, 2-time All-SEC, Travion Henderson, 1-time All-Big Ten, and maybe a Big Ten Freshman of the Year in 2021. So I think the running game is going to be improved regardless. And now you'll see with a more experienced offensive line, an offensive line, Donovan Jackson knows that this is his contract year. This is Josh Simmons probably thinking, hey, this is my contract year. Plenty of motivation there for a lot of guys.
Siknijog says, since they have made it known they are looking for LJ's successor, if they don't find one soon, they will kill defensive line recruiting. You're admitting he's gone soon. This has been a rumor with Larry Johnson for literally a decade now. So, yeah, they'll find a successor. They will know who the successor is. They'll figure it out. They know this is coming at some point. Larry Johnson is, as far as I am aware, not immortal. So at some point, Larry Johnson will no longer be the defensive line coach at Ohio State. It's been rumored for a decade that, I think Joey Bosa was told, like, there's no way he's going to be there for your whole career. this has been this story as long as Larry Johnson has been at Ohio State, really. And Larry Johnson's still there. And so being proactive and trying to address it, whether it's Jason Taylor or whether it's someone else, I'm sure they're going to be, they will have a plan B. They always, they tell you athletic directors always have a list in a drawer for, head coaching hires. Who do they need? Who, if something happens tomorrow, if my head coach, whatever, steps in front of a bus, gets implicated in a wide-ranging cheating scandal, whatever it is, who are my 3 calls, who are my 4 calls, whatever. I think as a head coach, you probably have to have at least some idea on all your assistants as well, like that.
And it's not like Ohio State's going to struggle to find somebody for that role. Ohio State, if you believe the Jason Taylor rumors, which of course I do, Ohio State has identified somebody, but we're talking about one of one at this point. There are going to be a lot of people who are like, I'd like to coach at Ohio State. People that have very nice resumes, whether or not they have Ohio State ties or not. Of course, we've seen it in the chat. People mention Randall Joyner. I mean, yes, he was a GA at Ohio State. He's at Ole Miss right now. He's somebody who could be talked about. Maybe the timing would work out at some point. If it's not, if it's not Jason Taylor, that happens. There could be a lot of other guys. But, to the original comment, it's not going to be any different than the fact that people are trying to say that Larry Johnson isn't going to be at Ohio State any longer, and they're going to suddenly change everything it is they do, and you're going to be left holding the bag, and you're not going to have anything. And that's not going to be the case, but I can understand the concern there, but only positive thoughts right now.
Interesting one from Signiyag here. It was funny that LJ a few months ago said, why don't they ask when Saban is retiring? He's the same age. Well, life, as they say, comes at you fast. We got a super chat here from Sean
must
Pretka.
Credit Buckeye Huddle.
Sean Pretka says, Michigan fan base now crying that OSU is buying their roster. Seems things that are actually legal really bother them.
The thing is, like, you better be doing this above board, and a lot of schools are, and you see that we talked about the Florida schools earlier who clearly weren't, and now they're bearing the brunt of the NCAA investigation. But this is all at this point, it is college football. This is legal, and this is the way things are. So it's too bad that Michigan fans have not been able to enjoy their national championship longer. They got 2 weeks, 10 days out of it, and it's not, now they're just upset about Ohio State.
Well, and what was kind of funny was they won the national championship on Monday, and Nick Saban announced he was retiring on a Thursday, a Wednesday. It was like 2-3 days after, and then the whole college football world just kind of moved on, and it was like the whole college football world had forgotten about it and was thinking about something else. Like before they had the parade up in Ann Arbor, it was not quite to the same level as 2011, where Michigan beats Ohio State for the first time in 8 years. And that happens on a Saturday. And then on Tuesday, Ohio State hires Urban Meyer. And then it was, you had Michigan fans saying 10-year war II, Brady Hoke versus Urban Meyer. And that is, I don't know, what is the
freezing cold takes.
Yeah, freezing cold takes. One of the greatest freezing cold takes of all time. Aaron says Tim Walton is absolutely killing it. I had my doubts when they hired him. Super glad I was so wrong. He had the Ohio State ties, had coached in the NFL a long time, but who was it? It was one of the defensive backs and at Jacksonville, I think, said he was like an all-pro defensive back. I'm blanking on the name right now, but
I know exactly.
Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, yes, Jalen Ramsey said
yes.
he's the best coach he's ever had. And that was one of those like, okay. Because you have seen coaches come from the NFL and just not work out at Ohio State. And Tim Walton was not necessarily someone who, was one of those position coaches who everyone knew his name because he was so famous for being so incredible. But that was kind of one of those like, okay. And having played at Ohio State, I think it gets a little oversimplified where it's like, why don't they just bring in Orlando Pace to coach the offensive line and Andy Katzenberg to coach the linebackers and, whoever, Joey Bosa to coach the defensive line and whatever. But, the ones, he's busy right now, but maybe eventually. But the guys who are Ohio State players who have, who kind of have those coaching chops, you've seen that work out real well a few times where Brian Hartline has sure worked out real well, and especially in the recruiting front. And Tim Walton has really worked out well so far in the recruiting and the development front. And, James Laurinaitis, I think there's a lot of optimism that James Laurinaitis is going to potentially have that kind of impact on the recruiting trail and in terms of development as well. So I don't know that you can build you can't build the whole plane out of the black box. And I don't think you necessarily build the whole coaching staff out of great former players, but it has really worked. And Tim Walton deserves a ton of credit for what he's done since getting to Ohio State.
And to bring this full circle, when Ohio State did not land Caleb Downs, there were fans ready to run him out of town. And here we are.
Well, and in 2022, things did not go well defensively. There was a lot of criticism. He signed Jair Brown and Ryan Turner at corner. Jair Brown started the game as a true freshman. Both of those guys are gone now. So there were plenty of thoughts that, hey, this was a mistake by Ryan Day, and that didn't last long, and it's only getting more icy, that freezing cold take, as Tim Walton has continued to do well, and was a guy that was well thought of when he was at Miami way back when, and obviously has had a long career at many different places. Seems like now he has finally found a home, though, I think.
Well, and the thing was, Mark and I were down in San Antonio and had the chance to talk to Devin Sanchez and his family prior to the announcement coming out. He made the announcement at the All-American Bowl, and the family could not have said everything they said about Tim Walton was glowing. And it was, it's easy to sit there and say, well, he was the coach in charge of recruiting the kid, but really the school landed the kid. No, Tim Walton is a huge reason why Ohio State lands Devin Sanchez, is a huge reason why I believe Ohio State lands Dorian Brew. Yes, Dorian Brew's mom ran track at Ohio State, but that relationship with your position coach, everybody talks about the head coach and even the coordinator, but it's that position coach, that relationship you have with the position coach that is so important. And I know Ohio State doesn't really go out much further than 3-year deals on coaches, just like you probably shouldn't go out on like 10-year extensions on Mel Tucker or whatever. But
why?
Lock this. I don't know.
What have you heard?
Lock Tim Walton down now. Lock him down now.
Couple quick ones. We're kind of wrapping up here. It looks like we're through most of our questions, but Mickey Hanna wants to know, is Court Williams still with the team? Court Williams is still with the team, right? I haven't forgotten anything.
Well, he walked on senior day, and I did a search last week for him in the OSU student directory and didn't find him. But sometimes people go by their middle names, and so it's like, and you can't really search by Williams. Good luck with that, just so you know. But he moved to linebacker last year. He could come back. Technically, I think he still may have like 3 years of eligibility remaining because of the injuries. He was a 2020 recruit.
Yeah, so he would have the COVID year. Yeah.
So it's like his clock would start in 2021, but has lost 2 seasons to injury, I believe, since then. So you can't apply for your 6th year until your 6th year. But would sure love to see him do something somewhere. Former Buckeye captain, and was a guy that was really, really highly thought of by the coaching staff. Just injuries every single year, unfortunate. And when Ryan Day announced the latest injury last season to a room full of reporters, you just hear this 40 people. It's like, gosh, dang it.
Yeah, we're not, we're impartial. We're not sitting there with pom-poms on the sidelines or anything like that. But I think we're okay rooting for people. And he's one of those people who it's like, man, you would just, it's like Cam Babb a couple of years ago. Like, you just want this to work out. Like, great kid, great leader, captain on the team, just cannot catch a break injury wise. So you hope that works.
And that touchdown he caught is one of those things that the years will pass and memories will fade, but I will remember that touchdown and just the outpouring of emotion on the sideline. People were crying, like the team, and him going up there to like reach over to his mom. I mean, it was really one of those moments that kind of is bigger than the sport itself. That touchdown meant nothing in terms of the outcome of that game, but that touchdown meant everything for somebody who gave it all and went through so many injuries and so many battles to get to that point. And those are the things that I really cherish in doing this job. Oh, you get paid to watch football and do all that. Yeah, it's all well and good, but that is 13, 14 Saturdays a year, and there's a lot of other days I've got to find something to do so I don't get fined or fired. But that is one of those things that I will remember.
Didn't CJ Stroud say that was his favorite touchdown or his best touchdown or his biggest touchdown after the game? CJ Stroud.
That wouldn't surprise me. Those two were thick as thieves. They were really tight. So.
All right, and this is a great one for us to end on from Ann Arbor Buckeye. Those who stayed will taste victory versus our rival in November, winning the Big Ten and winning the chip. I think we're in for a few chips. Tony, what about this for a motto for Ohio State football 2024? Those who stay will be champions.
Well, is it trademarked? It feels like it might be trademarked.
All right, fine. Then let's not, rather than focus on the individuals, what about this? The team, wait for it. The team. I think 3 is the right number there. What do you?
Ooh.
What about that?
That not bad. I do like the suggestion here from Kevin. Boo Tom, which is always
okay.
Now that is trademarked and that is mine, but I will print that out.
All right. So we talked about this earlier. Who are the 2 teams in the Big Ten who are maybe perceived as the 2 favorites right now? Ohio State and Oregon. I think you assert your dominance. Hail to Ohio State, the champions of the West. How about that? I can't believe I'm giving away this stuff for free. This is incredible merchandising opportunities here.
You know where you should post it? On the Huddle board at Buckeye Huddle. And then people could sign up at BuckeyeHuddle.com to see all of Tom's musings and the rest of our stuff, but mostly Tom's musings.
Some of Tom's musings. If you want to see all of them, you need to go to his Tumblr page. I would not recommend it. It's a lot of anime and poems. And on that note,
say goodnight, Tony. Say goodnight, Tony.
Tom, anything you got to add?
Roses are red, violets are blue. It's time for me to go to bed. Wrap up the show.
Screw you too.
All right. We do thank you all for over 1,000 of you at one point joining us on a Friday night. But obviously very big news for Ohio State. A key cog for the secondary for the entire defense, Caleb Downs, committing to Ohio State. Will be transferring. Will be in classes on Monday, probably. If you have not yet liked this video, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate it. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please just do so. If you have not yet subscribed to BuckeyeHuddle.com, you should do that as well. We've been talking about the Bill O'Brien hire for a week now. Been musing about the Caleb Downs possibilities. I did not see it. I did not think it was going to happen. It has happened. We will be talking about that and much more at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and we will talk to you guys later.